okay, well, nobody knows me. Nobody knows what I'm capable of.
Showed the logic, showed the emotion around the solution. Frameworks wise, like only 3,500 followers, you're making on track to $1 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. I'm great at sales. I will say that. Like, sales is my number one thing. Like, I can sell anything. I remember going to a estate sale and I picked up a brand new Coco Chanel women's business suit. I think I paid $50 for it, sold it online for I think $2,000 or $3,000. I actually got into coaching because my son at the age of 14 actually was hospitalized, and I kind of had a wake-up call because I was working 6-7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days. And I just realized with everything that was going on with him that, I needed to focus on my family. So I decided to quit real estate. I started an online clothing business, and I was not making a whole lot of money. It was maybe around $3,000 a month. Now, coming from real estate, that was a big adjustment for me. So I was online all the time, and I realized that there were people calling themselves coaches. And I was like, what is this coaching thing about? And I was like seeing people, how coaches do, like they post, I'm working by the pool today. And I was like, that's the life that I want.
We got to work this out. How are you making this much money from this few followers? People typically think they need hundreds of thousands of followers to be able to make that kind of money. And you're doing it with, less than 10K. So how are you doing it? Thank you so much, Yolanda, for having you here on the show for Social Media Growth Hackers. So I really want to jump straight into it. I came across your profile because we were both in the same mastermind, and I learned that you only have 3,500 followers. You're on track to do almost $1 million a year. So I really want to dive into that. But first, before we go straight into it, I want to learn a little bit more about your journey to where you are today. So I know you started in real estate, so maybe we can start there and then discuss after that kind of where things have progressed to where we are now.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I got into real estate at a very, very young age. Well, I think very young. I was 24 and I got hired on by a company. I was actually just applying for a assistant position. I was fresh out of college, had my degree in business and major in marketing. And they wound up telling me they would call me the next day. And I never heard from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they called me up and they were like, hey, we lost your number, but we found it. You are overqualified for this position, but we want to offer you another position. So I was offered a sales position, and within 3 months, I became the sales manager. So that home builder at the time was building about 30 homes a year. And when I finished working with them, I finished my time with them about 4 or 5 years later, we were building 300 homes a year. So I literally built that entire team from the ground up. And it kind of became a battle in the town that I lived in of, okay, who's going to pay Yolanda the most because she's a hustler. She's out there making these sales. And so I had another home builder offer me higher pay. So I went with them, and they were in business for 30 years, had never sold. They did custom homes from the ground up, had never sold more than 20 homes a year. And by the time that I had left with them, because they were a different quality, bigger home, we were doing about 60 homes a year. I didn't stay on with them very long. So yeah, I learned sales very quickly, mastered it very quickly, and just that's part of who I am and what I love. But I actually got into coaching because my son at the age of 14 actually was hospitalized. And I kind of had a wake-up call because I was working 6-7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days. And I just realized with everything that was going on with him that, I needed to focus on my family. So I decided to quit real estate. I started an online clothing business, and I was not making a whole lot of money. It was maybe around $3,000 a month. Now, coming from real estate, that was a big adjustment for me.
Mm.
And I didn't love clothes, to be rather honest with you. I'm not the typical female.
Really?
So it wasn't like something that I absolutely loved. I was just doing it because I could do it from home.
Okay.
But that taught me about building a business online. And then so I took a stab at this whole coaching thing, and here we are.
Yeah. So this clothing brand, this clothing boutique, I want to learn a little bit more. So what kind of clothes was it?
So it was actually reselling clothing. So I would go to estate sales and thrift stores, and I would find name brand clothing, and I would buy it for sometimes $4, sometimes $1, and I would resell it online on eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. And yeah, I was making a decent amount.
So did you you leave real estate and then decide, okay, I'm just going to go and buy some stuff and then hope to sell it online? Or was it very much kind of like a slow transition of things that you were trying and testing?
So I left real estate because I found a YouTube video of somebody doing this, and she was making six figures a year. And I was like, oh, I can do that. Like, that's easy. So I did a lot of trial and error in that business. There was a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, this will sell. Oh, this will sell. And then you realize it doesn't have that much of a resale value. So there was a lot to learn in that, of the brands that people were actually looking for, the styles that they were looking for. And just because something sells for a high price in the store doesn't mean its resale value is actually the same.
Mm. Did you start making this $3,000 a month immediately when you were starting this store, or?
That was actually pretty immediate, to be honest with you. And I even started with stuff in my closet, like, some of my name brand clothes, just got rid of that and then started, going to garage sales, thrift stores, and estate sales. I remember going to a estate sale and I picked up a brand new Coco Chanel women's business suit. I think I paid $50 for it, sold it online for, I think, $2,000 or $3,000.
You paid
Yeah.
$50 and you sold it for $2,000-$3,000.
Yeah, it still had the tags on it.
Why did they sell it to you for $50? You just found it, or?
It was an estate sale, so they had passed.
Oh,
Yeah, so they were just trying to get rid of whatever was in the closet.
see, the thing is, like, when I got into business, like, this was one of the first ways I got into business. I started selling stuff on eBay, and so it really gets me
Oh.
thinking when you're saying this about how this was one of the first businesses that you started where you were selling stuff online on eBay. It's almost like that's like the baby steps to business, because a lot of the marketing's done for you. You literally just put your listing up, make sure it's well optimized, and then it should start to sell. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
That was the way that you kind of stepped into it. It's a very safe way of going into business, I think.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time now, when they want to start a business that's product based,
Yeah.
I tell them just starting your website isn't enough to drive traffic there. You need to go where the people are already at.
Yeah.
And then bring awareness to your brand and bring awareness to your website, because they're like, oh, I'm going to throw up a website and I'm going to get all of these sales. And it's like, no, how are you going to get that traffic there?
Agreed. Yeah, no, exactly. So I started a clothing line when, I think this was like a decade ago. I started a clothing line, and I put up a website, and I think I had thousands of people visit the website because I was sharing with friends and family. Not a single sale. And so it's literally, exactly what you said, like, putting up a website isn't enough. You literally have to go out, find the market that's going to be buying, and then obviously have a well optimized, high converting website so that people start to buy. And it was only when I started learning social media, we were printing like veganism messages on t-shirts. And so the second I started tapping into that vegan audience and growing a social media account within that, targeting vegans, did sales start to finally come in. And then obviously I started exploring eBay and Etsy and all these other stores, and obviously things started to skyrocket. So it's exactly what you said, right? Like, it's just about going after that market and then making sure that that market is in line with the brand that you're offering or the product that you're offering. And then obviously sales will start to come from there.
Yeah, 1000%.
I want to move into, so you kind of, I'm assuming you shut this store down or you kind of transitioned out of it, and that was when you started the sales coaching. So run me through that.
Yeah. So I kept seeing people online, because I was online every day, also promoting my stuff to get people even to my eBay store and my Poshmark boutique. So I was online all the time, and I realized that there were people calling themselves coaches. And I was like, what is this coaching thing about? And I was like seeing people, how coaches do, like they post, I'm working by the pool today. And I was like, that's the life that I want. So I wound up hiring my first coach, and I was just like, I just want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it. She was actually a manifestation coach. And I was like, I don't really care to learn about that. I was like, I just want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. Like, you're making money online, and I want to watch. And so I just kept asking her questions, and I just basically learned from her how to actually start a coaching business. And so my first month, I was so scared to let go of the clothing, because I was like, at least that's bringing something in. Going from making quite a bit of money in real estate to making $2,000 to $3,000 a month was a big blow to my ego, but it still was at least money coming in. And I was like, okay, this is great. And so I was scared. I was like, what if I don't get clients? But my first month in, I actually wound up doing 5K in sales. And then the second month I did 10K in sales. So yeah, well, let me just say this. My first launch, I thought, okay, I need something that people are going to buy fast, because I need to make money fast. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this course on how to sell clothing online and make a minimum of $1,000 a month. Let me just say, nobody bought that. I was honestly shocked. I had 100 people sign up for a free 3-day challenge that I did leading into the course.
Yeah.
Nobody bought it. And I think I was only charging like $200 or $300 for that. So not a whole lot of money. And I was like, what is going on? And then I decided, okay, I'm going to teach people how to manifest money because, manifestation was really big on the internet right then and there. And I actually have this really crazy story about an uncle that, consciously like focused on manifestation and then manifested a $42 million lottery win. So yeah. So it was insane. Yeah. So I decided, okay, I'm going to teach people about manifestation. And that's when things went crazy for me. I started off, I gave 3 free sessions away.
Yeah.
Then I went into charging $44 a session with me. But those $44 sessions led to a bunch of long-term, bigger packages with me. And that's when things really started rolling for me.
I want to break this entire thing down. So, okay, so let genuinely, I want to break this down. So this first time that you started to hire a coach, okay, what was going through your mind? Like, what were you thinking when you were hiring this coach? Was this just someone that you found? Were you following them for a while? Did they have a big following? Like, did they reach out to you? What was kind of the situation there?
Yeah, she didn't have a big following. I think at the time she had like 7,000 followers. I reached out to her and I was just curious of what she was doing because she was posting how people were paying her to teach them about manifestation. And I was like, man, I just really want to know how she's doing this. So, like I said, she was a manifestation coach, but I was very upfront with her and like, hey, I know that this is, what you're teaching, but that's not actually what I want to hire you for. And she was like, okay, that's fine. So at the time I paid her, it was $1,100. And I thought at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, for somebody to coach me, like that's a lot of money. And now I'm, now I'm in the coaching world and I'm like, oh, that was nothing. But yeah, and I just studied her. And she knew that. I was very upfront and just said, hey, what are you doing with this? How are you doing this? How are you, I basically learned how to create basically a simple funnel by myself. I'm not a tech wizard. I actually hate tech. So that was the hardest part for me is like learning how to build a sales page and learning how to build a freebie.
And so she taught you basically the fundamentals of how to sell digitally. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you decided you were going to teach people how to sell clothing online and make, $1,000 a month. You said you were charging quite cheap, $300. And it didn't take off, but you had 100 people inside. What's the reason? Like, what do you think was the reason as to why it didn't take off?
I feel like when I look back at that, I feel like my 3-day challenge was structured well. I'm great at sales. I will say that. Like sales is my number one thing. Like I can sell anything once I know how the product works, once I really know how, the ins and the outs. And at that time, when I look back at it, I don't think that I had really mastered sales online. My challenge gave a lot of value, but when it came to my pitch at the end, I believe it fell very flat. And I believe at that time, I was too nervous to take up too much space on the sales pitch. And so it was almost like, okay, thank you for coming. Bye.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it came to the final close, there was a bit of stage fright almost, or you just felt misaligned or something internally and it didn't communicate across.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that had you changed that one thing, you would have seen a pickup of it?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I also think that at the time, when we look at the business principle of perceived value, I was selling something that was supposed to make somebody $1,000 a month. And it was this big, long course. And yet I was selling it for $200 to $300. I mean, even when you take that in consideration, people are going to be leery of that, in my opinion. Like, okay, if this is going to make me this much money, why is she not charging more for it? So I think there was a couple of different factors in there, but I'm not going to lie. I know that my pitch fell flat.
Yeah. But I think the pricing does also make sense, right? In terms of what you were just saying, like had you probably charged a lot more, it might have made people think that, okay, there's value in this. It's probably worth investing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Interesting. And so then you decided in that moment, instead of doing this again and changing the way I pitched it, you thought, let me just switch up entirely my offer. How come you did that?
Yeah, well, I came into this knowing that I wanted to be a coach, and I didn't necessarily, like I mentioned, I didn't necessarily love the clothing business. I didn't necessarily love reselling things.
Mm.
It was kind of something that just felt like, oh, this is bringing in some cash, so let me do this. And that's where I thought the same thing with this. I thought, okay, this is going to be something that'll sell because it's easy to go to a thrift store, buy something, and then sell something and resell it. So that was my logic behind that. But the goal was always to become a coach. I had never wanted to really teach selling clothing online. There were a million people back then. I'm sure there are even more now teaching how to sell on Amazon, how to sell on eBay, how to sell on Poshmark. And I just didn't really have an interest in it. So I thought coming out the gate, oh, this will bring me some cash. And then when it didn't, I was like, okay, let me just switch to the original game plan.
Switch to the original game plan being to sell
Coaching. Yeah.
And so when you made this switch, and you said obviously that's when things really started to take off. What were the
Mhm.
key kind of changes that you made?
Key changes in my strategy. What I realized with that course launch is, at the time, I think I only had 1,000 or 1,400 followers. And so to get 100 people in front of me in my free challenge, I thought that was incredible. And so I knew that was a me thing, that was a strategy thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it came to, okay, I'm going to sell these coaching packages, but I knew, okay, I want to sell longer term packages that are going to be higher in value because they were one-on-one with me. Okay, well, nobody knows me. Nobody knows what I'm capable of. So I was like, why not get some testimonials from a few people? So I literally went online and I went into Facebook groups and I said, I'm looking for 3 women who are looking to change their money story. And I said, don't worry, I'm not selling you anything and you will receive something for your time with me. Well, what they were receiving was a free coaching offer with me. So I did that for 3 people. They had a session with me. Those people were absolutely blown away and started spreading my name on social media like wildfire. It was mostly on Facebook. So in the beginning of my business, I got a lot of business from Facebook. My name started spreading like wildfire. So the smart thing that I did with that post is even though I filled up those 3 spots within 5 minutes, and even though I had filled up those spots, because I didn't go and say, hey, these spots are filled, people still kept reaching out to me. Hey, Yolanda, I'm interested in this free offer that you have going on. And so I told people, hey, here's what I was doing. I was giving 3 free sessions away. However, if you're willing to give me a testimonial, I will do the session for you for $44. And then people still kept paying me. So then I went up in price after, I don't know, 7 to 10 people paid me $44. I went up in price. I kept the posts up. They kept bringing me people. Then I went up to $88. Then I went up to $111. Then I just kept going up. And that's literally how I built my coaching business. But those people that had that single session with me wound up in a longer term package.
Yeah. And that's just because you gave amazing value, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did the coach that you hired, did they teach you this strategy, or was this something that you just kind of figured out?
No, this was just something that I just was like, I think I'm going to try it this way. Her strategy was you run a 3-day challenge, you funnel people into your course.
Yeah.
But I was like, that clearly didn't work for me. I need to try something different.
And this was something that your gut was just kind of saying, like, I feel like this makes sense. Let me just go ahead.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I feel like there's a million different ways to make money and make millions.
Mhm.
And I just love hearing the fact that you just went, you know what? I'm just going to go with what my gut says. Like, my gut says, go into these Facebook groups, speak to these people, give free value. And from the free value, I'm just going to upsell. And honestly, sometimes like that is all you need to do. You know, there is like,
Yeah.
I remember like we have one of our longest clients, one of our best clients, you know, he's just hit 150,000 or 160,000 celebrity psychologist. And I remember like, I was like, how do I get in touch with this person? And my gut was just like, just send them a voice note DM, offer free videos that we can like cut up, because we were just doing videos back then. We weren't doing any strategy, and see what happens. And literally from those free videos, we got on a call, we had a conversation, had a podcast, etc. And then boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, one of our longest clients and like smashing it, you know, referred so many people. But just the point, exactly what you said, right? Just going down, like, what does your gut say in that moment? Technically speaking, we already had a funnel that was working, right? We already had a system of running ads that were working. But in this scenario, I was just like, I just just need to go with what my gut's saying, you know? So I really love the fact that you did that. And so you then started raising your prices over time to then get to a position where you suddenly, selling high ticket, I'm assuming, right? Now,
Yes.
was that because you felt you had enough testimonials, enough case studies, basically enough perceived value to be able to charge that? Or was it another reason that you thought, you know what, now it's time to raise price?
Yeah. So as I kept getting people results, obviously my confidence built. And then I was like, okay, this is valued at way more than what I'm charging. So I just kept increasing and increasing. And then it's interesting, again, going back to that perceived value conversation, because on my website, I used to have a form that people had to fill out in order to have a call with me. And on that form, it would say, working with Yolanda for X amount of time is X amount of dollars, and I would have people that came to me and they were like, okay, I have to have a call with you because 3 months ago, I saw that you were charging this and now you're charging this. So I have to get in now before you keep going up. And so that actually helped as well.
Wow. So you were consistently publicly raising prices. I'm assuming this is all your sales knowledge as opposed to like someone teaching you this.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I was in college, I wanted to make some extra money and I started selling Mary Kay. And have you heard of it? No. It's makeup.
Okay.
It's like a network marketing makeup
Okay.
thing. And within 2 months of joining the team, like I would just binge everything sales that they would put out. Like, network marketing teams always put out a ton of sales knowledge. I was 18 years old. I was just binging everything that they would put out. And within 2 months, I had recruited 30 women under me, and that's unheard of. And so, yeah. And so I was like, man, I'm really good at this whole sales thing. And so that's when I had decided, okay, this is probably a direction that I want to go. And then while I was also in college, I worked at a spa because I was a licensed cosmetologist. I worked at a spa doing facials. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I believe we were supposed to sell something around like $700 of retail products a month. Everybody in the spa had to do that. And I believe I was doing like $4,000 a month in product sales. And so everybody was like, yeah, the owner was like, where is your dream vacation? And at the time I said Paris. And she goes, I'm going to send you to Paris if you keep this up because this is incredible. And everybody in the spa came to me and said, how are you doing this? How are you doing? Even when I joined real estate, I had people coming to me and they were in the game for 3 to 5 years. And they were like, how are you making so much money? How are you selling so many houses? Even I was talking to my husband actually this morning about there was an event called the Parade of Homes. And it's a 2-weekend event. I sold 11 custom homes off of that, 500,000 plus, out of a 2-weekend event. And the person that replaced me after I left that home builder's office, she came to me later on and she goes, I hosted the Parade of Homes and didn't sell one home. How did you sell 11 homes in just 2 weekends? And I was like, I don't know.
You're a sales coach, right? So at this point, you've understood frameworks, understood strategies that typically work, right? I definitely want to dive into this, but I want to kind of go into it chronologically. So right now, you're currently on track to do $1 million a year. You have a following of 3,500, on track to do $1 million a year. We got to work this out. How are you making this much money from this few followers? People typically think they need hundreds of thousands of followers to be able to make that kind of money, and you're doing it with less than 10K. So how are you doing it?
Yeah, it's funny because when you and I met, I think I only had 2,500 followers. So this 3,500 just recently happened and I just hit 3,000 2 months ago. So here's what I tell people. You can have thousands of followers in front of you, but if you don't know what is going to capture the consumer mind, then you're still not going to make sales. So let me put this into perspective. When I was first learning how to sell homes at the model home when I was hired on with that builder, the person that was training me, my job was to take people on a tour of the model home. The person that was training me was telling me all of the things about the AC upgrades and the roof shingles and the warranty on the house, and how the framing was done to last long and all of these things. And she was telling me to make sure that I focused on those things. But when I was walking people through the house, what I realized is people buy what they can see. And I'm going to tie this into actually what I learned later on about the consumer mind. When I was walking people through the house and I was telling them these details that she told me to tell them, I realized people didn't actually care about those things. They were asking me, "Hey, this pop-up ceiling in the living room, can I get that in my house? Hey, this kitchen backsplash, this is beautiful. Is that an upgrade? Can I get that in my house? This tub, oh my gosh, I love this tub." And so I was like, they don't care about what's in the walls. They don't care about what's on the roof. They care about what they can see. And so I started tailoring my walkthroughs through that. And that's when sales exploded. And it's the same thing online is when somebody comes to you. So, okay, there is a buying process to the brain. The very first thing that our brain goes through is called the visual process, right? This is where we are justifying every single purchase in our head. What am I getting? Why does it matter? Why do I need it? Because we associate money with survival. And so we have to really realize, like, why do I need this first and foremost? But people always think people buy from emotion, and that's true, but it's not true. It's true because that is a part of the buying process, but it's not true because it's actually the last part that somebody checks in with to make sure that it's what they want. So first you have the visual. When you're selling an online course, you do not have the luxury of giving somebody your course in their hand. They cannot hold it. They cannot walk out of their office or their living room with that in their hand. So it's your job to make the transformation as tangible and visual as possible. Then they go into a process called auditory digital, which is the inner dialogue that they are having with themselves about what they just were presented with. So it's like, oh, okay, well, Yolanda said, this is what I need to learn, and this is what I'm teaching, or this is what I'm getting, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, how does that feel? That's the last piece, is the kinesthetic, the emotion. How do I feel about this? Now, whether they have a positive reaction, of course, that's going to lead to a sale, or a negative reaction, that's going to lead to them walking away. So if we do not ground people into what they can see and the tangible, then the emotion will actually reverse their buying pattern if we start that first. You see a lot of people doing posts. I'm sure you do as well. And I tell people, you got to stop doing this. Their posts are things like, you can do this, you want more, you're ready for more. And it's like, that's all emotion, and there's nothing of value for them to grasp onto. So then even if your post spoke to them, what winds up happening is when they get in front of you, they didn't have anything to ground into that visual. And so they're like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the right time for me. And so their inner dialogue starts saying, next month will be better. I need to speak to my spouse. Can I think about it for a little bit? And that's when you've reversed their buying pattern.
So your strategy is ground them with a visual to showcase the need, and then the emotion comes thereafter. And that visual is not the actual course, but it's like everything else that the course can provide, basically. So that's where the lifestyle,
right,
et cetera, right?
Right, exactly.
So if I show them the lifestyle, or you show them even the story, the fact that you're able to have all the time to be with your family, etc., is that count as like a visual need showcase?
It can, as long as you are educating them on how you got to that process. So if we just show a lifestyle, that's just emotion. But when we start grounding people into the principles, into the methodology, into the framework, into the things that actually got you that lifestyle, that's when they can put need plus desire together. And so when we take that whole buying process of the brain, we're first needing the need. Again, why do I have to have this? And then the emotion, why do I want this? And we basically marry those two.
You combine the two together. Okay, so let's take, for example, a relationship coach who has a relationship program. What would you do in a scenario like that? How would you kind of apply this principle?
Yeah, so I actually had a client who was a relationship coach, and she came to me after not making sales, with other programs and things. And when I looked at her content, it was all emotion. And I was like, yeah, people want love, but you're not giving them any reason why you are the answer to them finding love. So I was asking her, what's your framework? And she was like, just very basic stuff of like, I give them a dating profile and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, well, that's still not good enough. I was like, so the work that you're actually doing with them, what is actually happening internally that's flipping the switch to help them then attract the partner. And so then she started breaking down basically things that happen with pheromones and things that happen in the brain when we're on a date and things that happen when we are making a love match and a connection, and physically how the body then responds to that. And so we turned that into her framework. She went from making $0 to $17,000 a month immediately after that. And it was because she was able to marry the logic of why this matters, why this is different from everything else your person has tried. Because when we think about it, a lot of people have tried a lot of different things. So they're looking for, why is this different? Mm-hmm. Even if we take diets, for example, how many people do you know have tried, keto, paleo, and, veganism, all of the different things to try and lose weight. And they just keep switching from thing to thing, not realizing, hey, there's something deeper going on. Okay, well, you didn't tell them about that.
I see. So you basically want to apply logic, showcase more about the steps behind what you're offering in conjunction with the emotion of selling. So if you typically everyone has the emotion of selling on lock already, which is why they're doing what they do. But it's show them logically how this process works. Show them logically why it makes sense. Show them logically why you're different. That combined with the emotion is what will capture the sale.
Right. So imagine, there's a lot of quote unquote business coaches that just teach mindset, right? Like I've paid for things and then I get in there and I'm like, oh, this is a lot of mindset. And that's great. We do need a strong mindset, but also, in my opinion, when you are a strong entrepreneur, you probably do have a pretty strong mindset. Maybe you'll have a couple of things here and there that you need to adjust and, that you need to talk out, and that's great. But if you are an entrepreneur and you're going to hire a business coach, if they told you, Cash, we're going to work on your mindset and we're going to focus on how you feel about you, well, you're like, well, that's not what I need. Yeah. I need strategy. What's your strategy? Tell me what you're, so yeah, we have to ground them in that logic, which is then the value of what we're offering.
So a company like ours, we obviously help people go viral. We have an entire system and process for that, right? An entire done for you service. Where it's a done for you service, are you then saying that, okay, the emotion being that feeling that you get when you finally go viral and you can explode your business and have a personal brand, and the logic being showcase how our strategy works. Like our strategy is, the scripting is the biggest point of what's going to determine how viral you go, for example, and then talking about that in the process.
Yes and no, because when we break down the consumer mind, this, the three main selling points are love, money, health, and beauty, right? So why do we have to take in consideration, why does this person want this, right? So why do they want to go viral? They don't want to just go viral just to be seen. They want to go viral because they know that that's going to bring them sales. The more eyes that they have on their product, they know, okay, that's more chances for sales. So do I care about your strategy? Yes, but I care about why your strategy is personally going to make me more money. So then you need to educate me on why your strategy is different from everybody else's strategy. So for instance, if I were to just go hire a regular social media person to build out my content, well, that social media person's strategy is to get me people. But are they tailoring it to the people that are actually going to buy my product? Are they tailoring it to the people who actually want to have a change and actually spend money on getting that change, right? Versus your company as being very much strategic about this. So now you need to leverage the fact that it's the money based on what sets you apart from every other social media strategist.
I see. Okay.
How much money am I going to gain by hiring you because of your process?
Right. So you're rooting it in the logic of one of those three things, which is love, money, or health, and then applying it. Interesting. So you're rooting your sales back to a core need.
Yes. I had a girl come to me a couple months ago, and she all over her Instagram, systems. And when I had a conversation with her, I was like, what is it that you do? And she was like, I sell systems. And I'm like, this is why you're not making money. And she goes, but that's what I sell. And I was like, nobody cares about your systems. Nobody cares about your systems. What they care about is it going to make me money? Why do I need your system? What am I going to get out of your system? Oh, I'm going to make make more sales because you're going to give me XYZ, sounds great, sign me up. But if you just promote systems, our brains don't equate systems to more money. We have to show them that that's what they're getting out of it.
So then could you, I'm trying to break this down for our listeners as well, just as much.
Yeah.
So when you say, we're talking about the emotion that the solution provides, are we then also then talking about the logic behind what the solution is? So it's almost like focus on the solution and then apply logic and emotion to that solution.
So let me say this. So we were talking about the yacht party that you went to in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you had a film of you on the yacht, drinking a glass of champagne, celebrating all of the things. But if you solidified this to me by, let's say on that video, you pop up your income. While I was on this yacht, here's how much I made.
Mhm.
And then you lead people to the caption that then says, here's how I did it. And then you break down your 3-step process of, I'm going to help you build out the script that's going to capture people's attention. Then we're going to filter through and make sure that we are identifying the right followers for you. Then we're, like I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah.
But that's how we're basically marrying the two is I'm showing you what you want, right? Like, who wouldn't want to be on a yacht in Dubai drinking champagne?
Yeah.
But I'm also showing you how I did it. So then I'm marrying the logic with the emotion.
Yeah. So the emotion, so the solution being that I want to be in a position, as a viewer, you want to be in a position where you can be on a yacht, make all this money, etc. You're showcasing that solution with the video, which is an emotional piece. And then you're also showing the 3-step breakdown of how you get there, which is the logic behind the solution. So that makes sense. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And so that's what you apply to your brand at the moment. So with, only 3,500 followers, you're making on track to $1 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. And we do it in so many different ways too. It doesn't have to be just, I always say the low hanging fruit is like sharing screenshots of your income, because people come to me and they're like, Yolanda, I don't have your stats. I can't share that. And I'm like, the human brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than it does just written text. So for instance, I had a reel where I talked about you're overcomplicating content. And then I said, because the typical consumer buys from a 3rd to 8th grade level, well, then I popped up a shot of a chart that showed evidence of statistics showing that people buy from a 3rd to 8th grade level. And I circled it. And that reel did very, very well. And it's because I painted that visual, then educated people in the caption. And then I created the emotion through showing myself in the Palace of Versailles.
Right. Showed the logic, showed the emotion around the solution. Frameworks wise, like, is this, or rather strategy wise, when someone follows you, is it that you're reaching out to them? Is it that you're waiting for your content to do the heavy lifting and then they reach out to you? Like, what's kind of that process?
So we have a mixture of both, but I will say that we do a lot of outreach ourselves and build connection with people. And we leverage a principle of reciprocity with people is we're gifting you something of value. Remember, that first step of the buying process is value. So we're gifting you something of value and then leaving you alone and letting you basically realize, oh, this is so valuable.
So are these people who aren't even your followers as well, who you'll outreach to, or are these mainly just
No, we only connect with people who are actually there for the message.
And so you'll send them a DM, you'll give them a piece of value. Is that value like a lead magnet? Is that something specific to them in that moment? Like what is that exactly?
Yeah, so it's just basically a lead magnet. It's a freebie that kind of breaks down something that they think is their problem, right? So if somebody comes to me, I know that they typically have a sales problem. So I know they typically, if they're not making money, you have a marketing issue or you have a sales issue. And a majority of the time, a lot of people have a sales issue because they're so scared of sales. They're so scared of being pushy and salesy and all of the things that we've been taught about salespeople. And so we're basically educating them on something that they think is their problem, which people that come to me, they typically think, I need more followers. I need better content. The algorithm hates me. I need to be in front of more people, which of course we all want more followers, right? But again, if you can't convert the audience that you have now, how are you going to convert even more people? I've had people with 100,000 followers, 200,000 followers come to me and they were nowhere. Like I've had people come to me telling me that they were making $2,000 to $5,000 a month with 200,000 followers. So I know there's a big sales issue there. There's a gap. You're not showing your person why they need you. So we're basically educating them on what they think their problem is. Oh, you think the algorithm is your problem, or oh, you think that your content sucks and that's your problem. So I'm going to gift you something with that, but in that gift, I'm going to solve that problem for you, but I'm then actually going to show you what your real problem actually is.
Wow. Okay. So you're highlighting like, here's what you're thinking. Here's like the mental chatter that you already have as the problem that you're currently in. I'm going to help you with that, but I'm also going to tell you that that isn't actually the problem. Here's the problem and here's the solution.
Yes.
Amazing. And is that like a PDF, like a webinar? Like what exactly is that?
Yeah, it's a like a Google Doc that I have a breakdown, and then I just talk them through it and kind of, elaborate on it.
Amazing. So you send this Google Doc, a video with it, explaining it, and then you just leave them alone, wait for them to reach back out, like, or do you do the sales follow-ups and all that stuff?
We follow up and check back in sometimes and see how they're doing. And, typically people are so receptive to the fact that I just gave them this massive value
Wow.
that nobody else has ever shared with them. And, because nobody else is really breaking those concepts down.
Yeah.
People are telling you, go sell on your stories, or, oh, have a great CTA at the end of your content. Nobody's actually educating people on what's actually missing in their process. So they're usually pretty grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because there are so many people out there who do provide these kind of lead magnets to their audience and don't see the kind of sales that you're obviously experiencing. So it seems
Yeah, you
like
need
it's the value component.
Yeah, when it comes to sales, you really have to show people why you are the solution. There's a million other business coaches online that you could hire. Why come to me? Okay, well, I'm not the business coach that's going to tell you, hey, journal about these things, or hey, create content in these 3 things. I'm going to give you the real nitty gritty, and then you're going to be so like blown away. Now, here's the thing. The reality is I break down so much sales psychology on my Instagram and on my podcast. I mean, I really break those things down. However, the average person still doesn't understand how to apply that to their personal situation. So then they're coming to me and they're like, Yolanda, tell me how to do this. And I cannot tell you. I talk about how to make things tangible and visual to the buyer's mind all the time. And people come to me and they're like, I still am not able to make this tangible and visual. I need your help. So even if I give you my best strategies, you're not going to master sales psychology just from watching a reel of me talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, for sure. Like even as we were speaking, I'm trying to break it down as well. And I'm trying to think of like all of our clients. And I'm like, how would I break it down for this client? How would we break it down for that client? And that was actually going to be my next question. So like we have like, go back to the relationship coach example, 10,000 followers or even less than that, messaging every single follower, sending a lead magnet. What kind of, can they send, do you think that they'd be able to get the same results if they sent the same type of lead magnet, like a Google document in the same kind of structure?
No, and here's the thing. It's we're not messaging every single follower. It's if they're engaging with us in some sort of way, we do message them, we do reach out. But I also do sales calls. And so on that sales call, I'm then again providing value. So when we think about this, I don't know if you had this when you were growing up. I definitely did. When I was little, there would be, the doorbell would ring and my mom would scream across the house,
Oh yeah.
don't open it. It's a salesman, And so we are conditioned to fear salespeople. And so you have to also think about that. So my first contact with you is thanking you for being a part of my community. My second, or in that same interaction, I'm then gifting you something of value. Now, then when we decide to have a further conversation and follow up, or you follow up with me, then I'm inviting you to a business audit. I'm not inviting you to a sales call. I'm literally inviting you to a business audit. And I have people say all the time, Yolanda, I'm not looking to hire a coach. Great. Don't worry about that at all. I'm going to give you massive value. And further down the line, when you are ready to hire a coach, you will hopefully think of me. And then, my strategy on the call is, again, I'm leading the call through the buying process of the brain, giving them everything that they need.
Yeah, yeah. So do you track like numbers when it comes to DMs? Like do you track like outreach? follow-ups, closes,
We don't
offers?
track how many people we send messages to a day or any of that. We do track who we have sent the free course to, who we've invited, to a DM or a business audit. We track those things.
So what are kind of typical numbers, if you remember any off the top of your head, of like from how many you've sent, the lead mag, not the piece of value to, versus those who actually end up booking in a call?
That's tough because we aren't tracking that. We probably should be, but sometimes people ghost you and that's okay. So I'd say it's probably about 50-50.
You're having these conversations, you've just given out the piece of value. After that point, and you followed up with them and they've said, I'm not looking for a coach. And you said, well, no worries, like I'm still gonna just give you some, like loads of value essentially. And when you do feel like you need a coach, you can come back to me. After that, do they typically are they more responsive? Do you still have to do a little bit more work to get them to become more responsive?
They're like, "Oh my gosh, okay, sign me up." And then they get on the call with me.
Amazing, amazing. And you pitch it as a business audit.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah, I ask them everything that's going on in their business. I'm looking at their content. I'm literally combing through their business with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
And then I will literally tell them, here's what you need to implement. Here's what you need to implement. Here's what you need to implement. And I'll tell them the sales psychology behind everything that I'm suggesting. So they know why it's important. So it's not just, oh, this random lady online is just telling me to adjust this. They know why it's important. Now, I'm giving them the what and the why. I'm never giving them the how, right? So I'm giving them massive value, what's missing, what needs to be adjusted, why it matters. If you want the how is working with me.
Amazing. And by that point, they're pretty much sold.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I have people all the time on their forums. They're like, I have no money. I'm not looking for a coach. And I cannot tell you, I'd probably say about 70% of the people that wind up working with me have that story and then they wind up in the program. So
Wow.
yeah.
Insane. And the program, I mean, do you have a few programs? Do you have one main program?
So I was just building my one core program, the Content Lab, and now we are building our mastermind, and then of course I have one-on-one.
Okay, amazing. And so the initial core one, what does that entail? Like, is that they go through a course and then they have your assistants at the side on the side? Like, what's kind of the process there?
Yeah, so in the course, we're teaching them the sales psychology behind content that's going to sell, the sales psychology behind, building out your client journey, making sure that your PDF, that your document, that your freebie, whatever you're sending out is of value to the consumer. I'm sure you've run across this because I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, well, I have this great meditation that I want to give somebody. And I'm like, great, a meditation is going to make me feel good, but it doesn't make me want to hire you.
Yeah.
So we're actually combing through their process. Most people, they have a framework and a process that they don't even realize that they have. So we're basically pulling those things out of them.
Right.
We're putting that in a way, again, that's going to be attractive to the consumer mind. And we're working with them on a weekly basis to refine that and adjust that and make sure that they're truly mastering sales. So I always tell people, when you come into my course, yes, you're getting my core principles in these videos, which is incredible, but you didn't learn how to drive a car from watching a video about driving a car. It's the same thing with sales psychology. You're not going to master the art of sales just by watching me talk about it. You're going to master the art of sales by you going out, trying, and then getting my eyes to say, next time, let's adjust this, let's change this, let's do this. My goal is to really solidify people in their sales process so that they're understanding how to continue to repeat that, whether they work with me or not.
Right. So where are you right now in the business? Like what are you kind of struggling the most with?
Right now, we're really struggling with demand. I think that's the biggest struggle is that, it's mid-September, I'm booked out mid-October. So now it's like, getting more employees in place and really being able to handle the growth at this time.
Wow, completely booked out. That's insane. What
Yeah.
about when it comes to like your brand? Like, are you trying to get to a position where, this entire DM situation is automated, like you have your own funnel, or is it very much you're enjoying this current process?
I think I like the current process. It's very personal. It's also very, like we're really building connection. That's one of the things for me. One of the things that my clients always tell me is, Yolanda, even though you have quite a few clients, I always feel like you have time for me, like I'm seen, like I'm understood. Like even when I'm coaching someone, I'm not rushing them through. And even if they come to me and they're like, this is a stupid question, I'm like, there are no stupid questions. I prefer people who want to remain the student at all times. So I really love the personal touch with my strategy right now.
I can tell you seem like the individual who's like really, really cares and really is super invested. And it makes sense. Like the very fact that, you don't have this massive team handling things for you, you're still the center of your business, just says it all. You're doing $1 million, on track to $1 million. We do $1 million a year, and like we have a team of 30 people. So it's a very different.
So,
Wow. So that's kind of brings us to the end. I am thoroughly satisfied with all of these questions that I had. I know I was like asking a lot because I wanted to break it down, and I'm super satisfied now. And I'm more than anything just super grateful for the fact that you were able to come on this podcast and join us and share all this information.
well, thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Amazing. All right. So for those who are listening, you can catch this on all platforms. We're going to be sharing this around. It's also going to be on YouTube, and it's also going to be in our private community. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yolanda. And how can anyone get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I am actually on Instagram as at Yolanda Boyarin. Last name is Boyarin. And then I have a podcast called Manifest Mad Money.
Amazing. I love that name, by the way. I just had to say, yeah, I know I DM'd you this as well. I was like, that domain is just insane. Like, I love it. So you really got lucky with that one. That was amazing. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. And everyone, if you guys want to reach out to Yolanda, go straight to those places. Amazing.